I own $40 million worth of rental properties that I've bought without using any of my own money. That's a big number, but it has not been all rainbows and butterflies. There have been some issues. There actually have been a lot of issues along the way. And I have done a lot of things well and a lot of things not so well. So what I'm going to do in this video and what I'm doing in this 10-part series is going back to the very beginning and talking about my first 10 deals that I ever did, giving a perspective now looking back through an experienced investor's glasses and also talking through the lens of a brand new investor. So you're getting both scopes. We're on the 8th property of this series, and this one is a doozy. This is actually a 3-property deal that literally almost put my small business at the time, my side hustle, out of business. I literally texted my business partner Lucas during this deal and said, I'm done with real estate. I'm just gonna go back to only doing my full-time job and not having real estate be a side hustle. So this one's got some lessons learned. It got a little hairy for a while, but we ended up making it work out. And hopefully you can learn a lot and not do the same mistakes that I did. So in this video, I'm going to cover how we got the deal, how we funded it, and walk through these 3 properties and show you why it was such a bad deal, and then how we figured it out and got creative and didn't sink our small business and persevered. Persistence beats resistance, and moved forward and ended up building a $40 million rental portfolio. As I alluded to earlier, I love breaking down big deals and talking about apartment complexes and developments, but that doesn't really benefit you. The whole purpose of this video and this entire channel and all my social media for that matter is to help benefit you. So that's why I'm taking a step back and we're starting at square one. Well, actually, square 8 now. This is the 8th property. So let's get into the detail, the nitty-gritty, and walk you through this deal. If you appreciate that, hit that like button. I'd appreciate that. As I mentioned earlier, this was a 3-pack of properties. I thought that we were crushing it. We had done 7 deals. I had a small apartment complex, did a few flips, had a few rentals. I thought I was big king swinging and thought that, you know, I couldn't really go wrong. This was back in 2016. The market was coming up. I was thinking, I am an expert at real estate. Y'all should learn from me. And man, was I wrong. This deal really kind of put an end to that and almost sunk us, as I said earlier. So I got this property from a local wholesaler. It was 3 properties, actually, 3 different houses in one deal, one of which I loved. It was a great deal, a perfect rental property that we could flip or keep as a rental. The other 2 were a little shoddier of properties in pretty rough areas. They were by far going to be the worst areas that I owned rentals in, but I wasn't too concerned about that because, you know, everything I touched turned to gold and I couldn't go wrong, right? So ended up closing on the properties, and I think we toured them quickly before closing, but I remember walking through the properties after we closed on them. Loved the first one, walked through the other 2, and one of them had like a block that was drilled into the floor right inside the front door, and as you go in, you go and grab a 2x4 and you put it underneath the doorknob and into the block to keep the door, to keep whoever trying to get in out. Probably not the best sign, but I thought, you know what, you know, this real estate thing's easy, I'm crushing so far, so let's just unscrew that block, clean up this house, and put it on the rental market. So we were in the process of doing that. The one property that was in good shape that we really liked, we were working on that a little bit, but we focused on the other 2 first and got those, you know, pretty well rehabbed. We were going through the BRRRR Method: buy, rehab, rent, refinance, and scale. Not gonna go into that right now, but if you want more details on the BRRRR Method, check out this video up here where I walk you through step by step what the BRRRR Method is, so you understand how to build a $40 million rental portfolio without using any of your own money, which is pretty damn powerful. So we got the properties done and we decided that we were going to sell the great property that we liked. We were almost done with that one, but we got the other 2 ready to refinance at the local bank. So we sent the paperwork into the bank and they sent out an appraisal, and we got an email back from the bank, and this is when I sent that text to Lucas. I remember reading the email, and the properties appraised, the 2 properties appraised for less than we bought them for. So we bought them for this, we put this much money into them, but they appraised for even less than we bought them for because the bank didn't like and doesn't like, and most don't like, lending in rougher areas. It's just more risk, there's not appreciation, there's just a lot of reasons why having rental properties in war zones is not really up a bank's alley. So we had to come to the plate with over $20,000 of cash, which I guess Luke's and I maybe could have put together if we needed to between the bank's funds and personal funds, but that's where I was like, let's wash our hands of this. This is stupid. Like, we've done a lot of really good things, but we just got kicked square in the nuts, and it's not something that I want to continue to do going forward, having to put all this work and all this effort, and basically everything was wiped out with just a few bad deals because we got a little cocky and didn't put in our due diligence. So that's where we were, and that's where I was, but luckily Lucas sometimes can be a little more level-headed than I am, and he'd said, let's try to figure this out first before we completely throw in the towel. So here's kind of what we did to make this work. So we needed to come to the plate with 20 grand to make these two properties whole, and we did not want to do that, A, and B, I didn't want to own rental properties in that area, as I kind of sat back and looked at the bank's reasoning for not wanting to lend us that much money. So even after selling those two properties, we were still 10 grand in the hole for what we had to pay our private lender back, plus interest. So what we ended up doing was selling the property that we really liked that we bought in the first place. The whole reason we bought this deal was because that one property was just right up our alley. So we ended up selling that, and we didn't make quite as much as we thought because we were distracted with the other two and not focused on this one, and the holding costs kind of added up on this other property. So we ended up selling it and making about $15,000. So we spent a lot of time and effort and stress and energy and probably 5 months out of our lives making these three properties work, and we ended up pretty much breaking even. We maybe made a steak dinner or something along those lines, but it was a lot of effort for not a lot of results that actually showed up at that time. But looking back, I learned a lot of lessons from this deal, and let's go over those lessons now. Lesson one was just not to get too cocky. As you've seen in the series, if you have not, go back and watch the first 7 episodes. Everything had gone pretty smoothly so far. There were issues and there were things that came up. We were always able to make it work or have minimal negative results. So I honestly just got a little bit cocky. Everything was going pretty good at the time. My daughter was starting to sleep through the night, so I felt really good and really energized at the time, and everything was just looking good as far as looking back. Wow, I own, $600,000 worth of real estate and done a few flips and thought that everything was rocking and rolling. So I just got a little bit cocky, and I thought that, no matter what happens, I'm not going to make any mistakes because real estate is just so powerful. The second mistake that I made was not double, triple, and quadruple checking my numbers. I don't even remember. I was going back and looking at all the paperwork preparing for this video, and I had a lot of numbers on that one property, but the other two, the property analyzation sheet literally wasn't filled out. I had the addresses and maybe what we bought them for, but then I could tell I just stopped doing the rehab budget and everything. I just completely was like, it'll be fine. So I didn't double and triple check, or even, I guess, whatever single check is. I didn't even do it. I just thought it was all going to work out because everything had pretty much worked out, especially on my rentals up to that point. So I didn't run the numbers fully. I kind of just did it on a whim and had my gut, which was not right, that it would work out. Had I gone back before we closed on it and actually filled out that form, I hopefully would have looked at it a little more subjective of a manner and actually ran comps and saw that it wasn't going to work out, the deal wasn't going to work out, and we could have completely avoided a ton of stress and effort and 5 months of our time, which doesn't sound like a big deal, but we were starting to get momentum at the time, and this really, really stopped that momentum. That 5 months is 5 months of time, but is also deals that I could have been doing. I could have done 2 or 3 more rentals and could have really got some more momentum quicker. So there's not only the sunk costs of not doing it, there's the cost of what I could have done but didn't do. And I don't just want to talk negatively, I want to talk about the positives of what happened and what I learned. And one of the things was, you can get creative with real estate. Even being a freaking moron like I was being and being an idiot, we were still able to kind of make it work and do some fancy footwork and utilize real estate and get creative, because that's what you can do with real estate. You can always wholesale or flip or rent. You can go to different banks or lenders. You can always mix or match and do a lot of different things. Real estate provides a ton of different options as far as making profit or getting creative. So like I said, we were able to sell a couple properties that we weren't planning on selling, and ended up selling one that we were planning on renting initially to make it all work and not be out of pocket 20 grand, which we did not even have at the time in the business account, like I said. So just getting creative is a great lesson, that even if you screw up and buy 1 good deal and 2 bad deals, you can sometimes make it all work if you keep your head about you and if you look at it from a 30,000 foot view and make the right decision. I purposely didn't show you all the numbers of each property and try to confuse it with 3 separate properties and 3 separate rehab budgets and ARVs. I wanted to get across the main points and the lessons learned in this property and how I almost screwed over my entire business by being cocky and stupid. So if you want a little more detail on how the process works with numbers, before and after pictures and all that jazz, check out this series over here where you will see the entire first 10 properties of everything between the walkthrough, the numbers and everything. We get a full scope of how I've done good deals and bad deals. Check it out.